Hey guys, thanks for joining me for a new video. Today I'm joined by fellow YouTuber and Etsy seller Kate Hayes. Kate, thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
So today you are the Etsy expert for sure. And before we talk Etsy real quick, check out Kate's YouTube channel. She also recently passed 100,000 subscribers, so congrats.
Thank
It's
you.
awesome.
Super
Yeah, check
excited.
that out. It's linked at the top of the description. And Kate, I wanted to ask you first and foremost about digital products because I'm intrigued by the prospect of making money selling on Etsy with digital products, but I'm struggling to hit anywhere close to your numbers.
Yeah, I think that digital products is a great place to start if I talk to so many people that are wanting to earn passive income. They're wanting to be able to, bring in more revenue without having to work hours upon hours, with all the other things they have going on in their life. I work with a lot of young moms who maybe have kids or are working a whole nother full-time job, and it's just not realistic to try to add more hours upon hours. So passive income is the name of the game, I feel like, when it comes to that. And especially on Etsy, digital products and print-on-demand products, anything that can bring in passive income, which means that you're creating something one time and listing it on a marketplace like Etsy, and then that's all the work that you do basically, is the creation of the product one time, the listing of the product, and beyond that, it's making sales and bringing you in revenue that really is passive at that point. So I think that that's why people are so interested in print on demand and digital products, because Etsy is a great place to do that. People are going on there looking for all different types of digital products. So I always encourage people, if they're wanting to look into passive income, there's tons of different ways, which you cover a lot on your channel, Ryan, but there's a great potential for that on Etsy for sure.
Yeah, so when it comes to I guess like starting an Etsy shop, if someone's just starting, like watching this interview, even though we both talked a lot about Etsy on both of our channels, I'm sure there's still people that are kind of lurkers, right? They're always
Yeah,
consuming more information, but probably haven't dipped their toes in yet. Do you have any tips
sure.
for people that are looking to get started, maybe even with regards to like what type of product should they start with? Like should they do print on demand? Should they list a t-shirt? Should they try a digital
Yeah.
product?
Well, it's such a hard thing. Everybody says niche down, like figure out a specific category. And that's so true. To go anywhere, you really have to be able to pinpoint something specific to focus on, because the options can really be endless, right? I mean, you could just go so many different directions. And a lot of times that can be really overwhelming when you're first starting and you're looking at all the different possibilities and opportunities for different types of products and niches. But I would say try to niche down on something that, number one, you're interested in and you're passionate about. Because if you're starting to make something that you're not really interested in at all just for the money, you're going to burn out really fast. So what's something that you're interested in that you could see yourself really enjoying the creation process of? But also, I mean, that's not really enough in and of itself. You have to tie that along with doing some what I call trend research, product analysis. If you decide Etsy is the marketplace you want to sell on specifically for Etsy, and look at what is currently selling really well on the platform, because there are things that do sell really well that are in high demand, and there's things that are not. And so you have to do a little bit of research and figure out, is there a product type that could tie both together that I'm really interested in, that I feel like I would enjoy learning about how to create, and then also with something that is currently in demand and you can guarantee is going to fly off the shelves in your Etsy shop and that people are currently searching for. So there are different types within the broader category of like digital products or print on demand. There are different types that are for different people. So some people would sell like maybe a business thank you card, or they make digital business cards for people and sell that, or business templates that business owners could use. That's one kind of more like specific niche that's really popular. But then there's also like printable wall art and home decor that you could do as well as a digital print. So there's so many different types of things. I feel like you really have to narrow down specifically what you're interested in, as well as what you think would sell really well through your research.
Yeah, that's some great advice. And man, I swear I had a great question for you while you were talking. And now my mind is kind of like blanking. So me and
Okay.
Kate are both getting over colds right now as we
Yeah,
record, but I'm sure it'll come
going
back to
around.
me. Yeah.
No
What was I gonna
worries.
say? Oh no, I was gonna say I really enjoyed your video. Like, I don't know if it's weekly or bi-weekly, but your like kind of Etsy trend reports where you're like, oh, you should do some research, like, or just go
Yeah.
subscribe to Kate's channel and let her do it
Yeah.
for you, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I do try to come out with those every now and then. Etsy actually has what they call the Marketplace Insights reports, which comes out. Is it quarterly? Are you familiar with that, Ryan? I'm not sure if it's quarterly.
It's been a while since I've read one of them. So.
Okay, well, those are helpful. I think it's quarterly or it's seasonal that they come out with those. But if you can look at the Etsy Marketplace Insights reports, that is a great place to start. For Etsy basically tells you, like, for this upcoming season, these are the things that are trending in the different categories, home decor, clothing, whatever the category may be. So that's a great place to start. You can also look at the Etsy Trending Now page. That'll tell you what things are currently popular that are selling really well. And my go-to, like, super easy way to research is to just go on Etsy and type in like a keyword phrase of something that you're thinking of and look at the results that come up on the first and second page of the search results. Because number one, those first few pages are the listings that are selling really well. And number two, you can look for that little yellow badge that says popular now or bestseller. Certain listings have that little badge on them. And that's kind of like a clue saying, like, hey, take special notice of me. I've been selling consistently. And then you can start to look for whether it be like specific color schemes or font styles or patterns, whatever elements you're seeing in those listings that are bestsellers, like repeating over and over again. You want to take inspiration from that, because those are like trend elements that are apparently very popular. That's why they're selling. And so it's not that you want to like specifically copy someone's product, and just completely remake another person's product, but you want to take specific like inspiration from those trend elements and think, how could I create something similar with these elements that are trending, but put my own unique spin and twist on it to make something even better and come up with my own bestseller.
For sure. That approach to research will never get old. And sometimes, you
that's
just keep
the basic.
Simple.
That's the basic way to do it. I mean, you can get really complicated, and there's paid programs that you can do keyword research and things on too. But if you don't have the budget, a lot of people don't have the budget to start out with. And they're like, how can I do this for free on Etsy? Like, plain and simple. And that is the best way to do it, for sure.
Yeah, that's some great advice. So we do a lot of print on demand on my channel. And I was curious, the first thing that pops in my mind is like just asking other sellers, like, what is your kind of go-to production partner? Do you use multiple? Does it vary by product? And what are some of your favorite like product types? Right before we started recording, I was actually prepping a different video that I'm going to release next week. And I was looking at Printful's like new products page, just seeing what they've added recently. And there's some cool stuff. So do you have any like out of the box recommendations?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of good options out there. And if you're looking into getting into print and on demand, you really need to research for yourself. But just off the top of my head, I think obviously Printful and Printify are like the two giants in the industry. Everyone's heard of those. But I do love specific things about Printful. Also, Awkward Styles is a great one. I would say those are probably the top two that I have looked into the most and really like certain things about each of them. I love, when you're doing research on what print on demand provider would be best for you, one thing that I always look for is a mock-up generator. So you want something where you can actually like go on there and see what your designs would look like on mock-ups, which are basically, if you don't know what that is, and just for like pure beginners, if you don't know what a mock-up is, it's basically just an image of the t-shirt or the hoodie or whatever it is that you're wanting to put your design on, and you can see what the mock-up would look like with your specific design on it. So a lot of these print on demand providers will have a mock-up generator that you can throw your design on and see for the different products what it would look like. And I think on Printfuls, you can actually even create designs on the mockup generator itself. But as far as types of products, I mean, the t-shirt is like always going to be the best seller. There's different brands of t-shirts. I love Bella Canvas is probably my favorite. But I love seeing all the new, different, like unique, more and more of these print on demand providers are coming out with options for like really unique things. So you can do you can print your design all over leggings or different types of hats. I've seen like sun hats and different like tote bags and mugs and even candles and things like that. So yeah, it's kind of crazy like how many things are being added to the options for what you can do with print on demand.
For sure. Yeah. The video I'm working on is like, I'm working with a kind of a design agency. So they said not to call them an agency, but either way, basically they have professional designers. So I can kind of just tell them the idea, they bring it to life. Oh, yeah. So I'm like, okay, let me get some out there products and some really good designers and see if we can make magic happen, and I just am kind of the middle point, making the money off selling them, hopefully. So
yeah, that's a great way to do it, for sure.
I wanted to ask you, so like, I'm not a great designer. You know, I've like been in Photoshop for, you know, probably like 20 years at this point, just kind of like making memes and messing around, but
Right.
it's not to the point where I would call myself a designer. But like, what is your approach or general approach or advice, at least for people that are listening that aren't the best designers? Because my main rule that I don't like to get things too complicated on my channel. I like to just say your designs have to be at least good enough, you know,
Yeah.
which is subjective. But if it's like if they're not good, it's gonna be
Yeah.
so hard to make a sale, right?
For sure, for sure. Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to design, there's a few really important things. Number one is what we hit on earlier with doing trend research. That I talk about it all the time just because it is so important. I think sometimes when you're a really like creative person by nature, you have a specific style and you have what appeals to you and what you like. And so it can be easy to just like go on a platform and create products that you like because you think they're awesome, but then they don't appeal to anyone else because that specific style is not trending. So I think it's really important before you ever even like touch a design software to have in mind what you've researched as far as what kind of like fonts are you wanting to use? What sort of color schemes are you wanting to use? Do you want it to be like bright, like super bright neon colors, or do you want it to be like muted, like boho, earthy tones? It's really important to do some research and see what is selling in terms of designs that you're seeing from those best sellers so you can have an idea of that. But then as far as like if you're a beginner designer, don't feel the need to go and spend a ton of money on like paid programs and learn these like super complicated programs. I think that's something you can do if you really want to, if you're interested in really digging in and learning design, right? And graphic design. But I remember when I actually, several years back when I first started trying some design things with mugs, that was what I was trying. I was doing sublimation at the time. So it wasn't print on demand. I was trying to make my own mugs. And I really had no clue anything about design. And I was like, well, I know I have to somehow like get a design on this mug, but I don't know how do I create my own design? Do I buy the design? And I had no clue. And honestly, I didn't even know there were like websites and resources that you could go to and buy like graphic elements to like piece together into my own design. Like you can go and buy fonts. You can go and buy like if you want a watercolor little splotch or something, or you want like a coffee cup or whatever you want, like you're envisioning for your design. You don't have to learn how to go on this super complicated software and design that yourself. You can actually just go purchase those elements from places. There's places online. There's so many different websites that you can purchase things like that on. Even Etsy, you can purchase things like that on
There you
Etsy.
go.
And piece those things together, even in a free software like Canva, something it can be as easy as that, and piece it together to create your own design. But the key is making sure that your design it's incorporating those elements that are known to be in demand and trending.
No, that's some great advice too. And it's very similar to what I recommend to beginners. I often just say, look, if your designs aren't good enough or you don't have a budget to maybe, use pre-made graphics, like a great place to start is to go to either Canva or there's a website called Photopea. I never know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's like photopea.com. They basically cloned Photoshop and made it so that it works in a web browser and you can use it
Okay.
completely free. So you can just go
Yeah.
in there and
Yeah.
make a text only dext and just
Yeah.
literally like text
Yeah.
only, put it on a t-shirt, start there, keep it simple, get
Text
a little
only.
bit more.
Yeah.
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 So
I love that text only is like selling so well right now because it makes it easy, and not that you want to like only ever do that just because it's easy, but I mean, there's a lot of t-shirts and that are just so simple. And I look at the best sellers and I'm like, that is a bestseller. Like it's crazy how simple they are sometimes, so it doesn't have to be super complicated.
for sure, for sure. And I wanted to ask you next. Well, actually, I had two questions, but I'm gonna ask you first. Have you ever thought like are there more is Etsy more subject to like ebbs and flows in terms of sales? Because I launched a new shop like probably in the middle of this year, and I'm splitting it with my girlfriend, and we're kind of having fun with it, but we're also pretty focused on getting prepared for the fourth quarter. And we've seen our sales kind of pick up, slow down, pick up, slow down.
Yeah.
And I was going to piggyback, and the next question I'm going to ask you is going to be related to like an ads strategy, maybe when the sales are slow, but
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So that's something I always try to encourage people with that, get discouraged. They've been on Etsy and it seems like a common theme. And I've seen this. I've been on Etsy now for over 7 years. I've seen that every year it's up and down. And as soon as like you can have 1 month that's just like amazing and your you're getting tons of sales every day. And then a couple months later, it's like crickets. And you're like, what happened? I didn't do anything differently. And I've learned over the years to not let that, get to me personally. It's just the way it seems to be on Etsy for different, and, different types of products and different niches will have busy seasons and slower seasons. And so I do think it depends on what you're selling specifically. But for me, like, I know certain months are always going to be more busy and certain months are going to be very much slower. If not, like, I'm having to, like you mentioned, the ads, I'm having to do extra things to really push marketing and advertising to really try to pick it up and gain some momentum again. But it's not a bad thing. It's just, I think that's kind of natural and to be expected on Etsy. So I think, going into your ads question too, like using Etsy ads, which are native to the Etsy platform. I love Etsy ads because people are already on Etsy shopping and browsing. And so when you put some budget behind using paid Etsy ads, you're basically just paying to be seen more on Etsy. So I do think that, what I recommend for beginners, especially if you're just starting out on Etsy, you don't want to just like throw a ton of money into Etsy ads because you kind of need to test it with certain products and see how it works. I've had certain products I've used with Etsy ads, different types of products. Some of them they worked for better and some have not. So I do think it's worth testing a little bit with a smaller budget at first, but definitely during the slower times, like that's what I tend to do is I don't really use them much during the times I know are already naturally busy for me. But during the slower times, I will put a little bit of budget behind using Etsy ads and test out different products and see how they work.
Yeah, my whole thing is like, I'll be excited about turning them all on, and then I get mad. I'm like, it's not working. I turn them all off, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm not supposed to do
back and
that
forth.
though.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, you kind of have to do what works for you, and everybody has a different budget as well. So, like when I was first starting, I didn't have much of a budget for that at all. I think I started trying like $1 or $2 a day and just trying it on. I didn't put it on for all of my listings. I only chose like, the top maybe 4 or 5 of my listings that I felt like had the most bestseller potential. And so I would recommend that. Like, don't feel like you have to just put ads behind all of your listings. Like, pick the very best ones that you feel like have the most potential to become bestsellers and put your money behind that and see how it works for you.
Yeah, I like that. And I always preach trying to sell on multiple platforms, like not to get ahead of, if anybody's just starting, don't worry about doing 2 or 3 things at once, start with Etsy. But I have
Right.
like a massive presence on Amazon. So I know what like my best sellers have been there. And when I push things to Etsy, it's like, okay, I know this is working. So I'm going to put the ads on. I always trick out the listings anyways, because like I don't want my statistics to get messed up because I'm like, oh, I didn't, make that listing good enough or something. So I pretty much always do that. And I was actually showing you the software before we started MyDesigns, which makes it pretty easy to like optimize listings. But yeah, so I always like at a minimum, because I have so many products on Amazon, like if I know it's a winner, I just, throw some ad
Yeah.
revenue in there.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's great. It's a great thing that like once you've started and you've kind of gotten over that, I feel like people can get overwhelmed. If they're just starting, they feel like, oh, I gotta like put all these listings up and I have to get ads going. And like don't feel like you have to do that from the very beginning. I think it's something that you can build towards, and then add that in as you get once you start making some sales, you can put some of your revenue back into that, investing back into that to try it out. But Etsy ads don't work for everybody. I've heard some people say that they've tried it over like a long period of time and it just hasn't seemed to work. So I do think there's something to like testing out different products. I've had some that have worked better with it and some that haven't. So I'm still a little bit undecided on that. I'm still
Yeah.
figuring out like testing how it really works.
I believe in them. I just think you have to be like active in turning off the products where it doesn't work, because if you look at the search terms they're spending your money on, like certain
Right.
products will eat too much of your budget on dumb
Right.
keywords. And it's like
Right.
Etsy's ad platform, it's like, don't get me started on it. Cause I remember when you could actually control your bids and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah.
Then it's
Yeah.
like, oh, overnight they switched it.
Now you
They
can't.
didn't email us. So all of a sudden my
Right.
budget was just getting spent in full. And I was like, whoa, all this money is just disappearing. Cause I didn't
Oh
check like
yeah.
daily like I should.
Right.
They probably got me for like
Oh
500
gosh.
bucks before I realized
Oh
it.
no. Oh, that's frustrating. I do
Yeah.
remember when it changed, but I don't think I was really putting that much into it at that time. So it didn't make a huge difference for me. But I do remember when they started offsite ads, which that was a big thing that you couldn't, if you were beyond a certain threshold, you can opt out
Yeah.
of that. So people have different opinions on ads.
Etsy's, yeah. It's just like the way that they kind of were, they didn't seem like they had a plan initially. They were just like, we'll do it this way. And then they're like, all right, we'll roll it back. We'll change it. Like,
Yeah. It's always like that, it's, you got to be flexible and just kind of roll with the punches. I do think, some people are like, I'm leaving Etsy. There's too many changes. They just do whatever they want. But I still think that it's a great platform. If you can be flexible enough to work with, I mean, of course, any platform you're on, you're going to have to pay fees. You're going to have to, there's going to be things with any platform. So I still think, at least for me personally, it's still worth it to try it. If you haven't tried it yet, again, it may not work for everyone, but I think it's a great place to start for beginners for sure.
For sure. And subscribing to your channel is a great place to start. And I'll also plug, last week on Monday, I dropped like a 2.5-hour Etsy video.
Nice.
And I said, I want this to hit 1 million views. Like, please, if you're up there, God, like,
Yeah.
do whatever you can to make the algorithm promote this.
Wow, that's a long video.
I tried, but it's like, it's
Great.
good for beginners, but it also skips around a lot to like more intermediate concepts. So
Okay.
it's a good one though. I've had people already say they've watched it 3 times. So I'm hoping that video is gonna, because that was my like previous most successful video on my channel. So I just kind of remade it, but put 5 times as much effort in. So
awesome.
That's one that I'll link in the description right below Kate's channel. But Kate, we're heading into the 4th quarter. So this is my last question.
Yes.
We're heading into the 4th quarter.
Okay.
Give some advice to anybody watching that is maybe it's their first 4th quarter or something. Like, can you help them along the way?
Yeah, for sure. 4th quarter is so exciting. Every year it's like, oh, what's going to happen? I feel like it's different every year too. So it is, I think that the more preparation you can have ahead of time, I guess that would be my biggest piece of advice, would just be prepare as much as you can ahead of time, because it can kind of sneak up on you. And then I had 1 year, it wasn't my first year, it was a few years in, but it was a few years in. And I was kind of expecting similar to what the year before was, but something out of nowhere just blew up. Like one of my listings just blew up and became a bestseller. And it really was like, it was an amazing problem to have, but it kind of was an issue because I didn't have anyone helping me. It was just me fulfilling the orders. And at that time it was like a physical product that I was having to fulfill, ship, like physically do everything for, store all the inventory for. I was having to order just like hundreds upon hundreds of, units of what I needed. And I didn't have anywhere to store any of the products. And it was just like, it was chaos. So I do think that, I don't think that happens for everyone. I'm not saying that will happen for you at this 4th quarter, but I do think that you should know it could happen. And I think that preparation is so key. And just knowing if something were to really explode and take off, if one of your listings, now I do think it's a little bit different probably with digital and print on demand, because you're not having to physically keep up with inventory and things like that. But any kind of preparation you can have going into it, to kind of know what am I going to do? Like plan A, plan B, plan C, and have everything laid out ahead of time will really save you. And you may even be thinking like, oh, I just started this shop, I can do this myself. But you may even eventually need to bring on team members to help, or even if it's just like family and friends to gather around and like help you fill orders or whatever it may be, like have in mind some of those things. But yeah, 4th quarter is so exciting, and just to finish strong, and don't get discouraged. It may take years. It took me years to get to the point where I was getting consistent sales on Etsy. So I think even if it's slow, don't get discouraged. Do whatever you can to really hit it hard with your marketing on external platforms, right? So social media, building your email list, collaborating with other sellers or with influencers, like reaching out to people and really being proactive with your marketing will go a long way too.
No, that's some really great advice too. And I love like the long time horizon, like perspective. And, like all of a sudden, I don't know, 2020 and beyond is like every business venture had to be successful immediately, right? Or, you had to give up.
Yeah, for sure. It's been crazy. And I think it's, we don't really know what's in the future. So I think there's something to be said for really remaining flexible and being willing to pivot. If something's not working, pivot to a different direction, figure out what is working and go with that.
Absolutely. And Etsy's growing as a marketplace. We know that. So that to me means as a function of customers, really. Like when I say it's growing, to me, that means there may be more sellers, but there's a lot of customers. And there's a website called SimilarWeb where you can kind of track like Etsy's growth, and they're traded on the S&P 500, which I mean, not necessarily a great indicator, but still something cool, right? Like they're a legit company. They're doing over $1 billion in revenue. I don't remember what their real revenue is, but they're growing. So I'm excited to be, back on Etsy. I'm excited that, you're sharing such great content on your channel and that you had time to join me for a video today. Kate, anything you want to leave everybody with?
Yeah, well, I just always like to encourage people when they're first starting, don't feel discouraged. It can be really overwhelming, but if you pick one thing at a time to focus on, I think that's probably how all of us started. It takes a while to build, but it will get there if you focus on one thing at a time and really be diligent to do the groundwork of building your business. At a certain point, you will start to see some momentum, and that's when things can really take off. So just want to encourage you, if you're watching this, if you feel overwhelmed or intimidated, don't feel like you have to do everything overnight or everything at once. Just pick the maybe one or two next best things to focus on, and you'll get there for sure.
That's great advice. I couldn't have said it better myself. Kate, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks so much for having me.